Welcome into K-State Online. I am Mason Voth. That is Drew Galloway. Here we are on a Wednesday. Missed the day yesterday. Had some not fun things going on. Had to say goodbye to our dog of just over 5 years. We got her when she was 11. We got her the day that K-State beat Oklahoma in 2020. My wife was up at a family birthday party. I stayed home to watch the game. Very good excuse for me. Sent me a text, said, want a dog. I thought she was joking about her brother's dog acting up, which she has been known to do, the dog acting up. And she sent me back a picture and said she's 11. And about a phone call later, lasted 5 minutes. She was coming home with the dog the next day. And Mitzi was pretty special to us. So that was hard yesterday. Even harder when you have a 2-year-old asking where she is. But it's been nice to get back into the flow of work and have plenty of things to take my mind off of it. So we've got this going here. I've got Power Cat Game Day to record tonight with Mitch, Zach, and Tim. And we've got a basketball game to talk about for tomorrow. And then Saturday, we've got a football game down in Stillwater. So definitely trying to take my mind off it as much as I can, because there's still plenty of moments where it gets really tough to think about. So that's why we had no show yesterday, and I didn't do a whole lot of anything other than try to soak up the last little bit with her. But let's get to the stuff that helps me take my mind off of that, and that includes K-State basketball. They get ready to take on Cal tomorrow, 8 o'clock, so a little bit of a later start time. But for those of you worried about the argument between YouTube TV and Disney, you don't have to worry about it until Saturday, because this game is on CBS Sports Network, which we have become quite fond of in the K-State circle, as many of you experienced last year. I think, if you're not going to be on one of the premier channels and get good eyeballs, I think this is where you want to be. The focus is solely on you for those games. They treat it like a big deal. And this is kind of a big game for K-State against Cal. Cal is not a great team, but they are a Power 5 opponent coming to Bramlage. And this is the first real, if K-State's like a tier 4 or 3 team right now, this is the win that can prove that they belong to be up a tier from that. The line not out yet from BetMGM. That'll come tomorrow. But for now, KenPom has K-State as an 82-75 home winner. So, Drew, initial thoughts on K-State taking on Cal tomorrow night?
It is a fascinating game. Both teams, I think, not really sure what they are yet. You look at Cal's schedule. They have played probably worse opponents than what K-State has faced. They've played Cal Bakersfield, Wright State, Cal State Fullerton. Struggled a little bit with Wright State, who is the best of those 3 teams, only won by 10. It has a lot of similarities, and we're going to get into this as we talk. But like you talked about a little bit before we started recording on Monday, talk about football. We kind of talked about the Cal game, and you said that it's very similar to the Iowa State football game. And then in the pick and preview that I've done for the Cal game, I've thought about this feels so similar to the LSU game a year ago. That game, we kind of knew that LSU wasn't going to be very good coming into it. They were picked pretty low in the SEC. They had a couple guys that were like, if that's your best player, and one being Cam Carter, that if that's your best player, are you going to be very good? They weren't very good. In case they got blown out in a game where it kind of felt like the season was over. It felt like, and it's a very similar timeline here, because I think it was the 3rd or 4th game of the year last year. And K-State played LSU at home and got blown out and kind of took the wind out of everybody's sails.
Exact same timeline. Game 3 on Thursday of week 2 of the season at home.
Well, there you go.
LSU was number 88 in KenPom. Cal is coming in at number 83.
Yeah, so it's very similar. And this Cal team, they have a couple guys that I think are noteworthy, and one obviously being Day-Day Ames, and then Justin Pippen as the other one. But it's not a great team. This is a game where if K-State is going to be that team that makes the tournament, you got to win this game and win it. I don't want to say comfortably as 15 or more, But if you can win this game by like 10 and it never really feels like it was that close, and you just kind of keep them at bay and like they maybe make like a 6-0 run to get it to 8, and then K-State wins the game by like 12, I think that you're doing something right. But it is kind of an early test, because if they don't win this game and don't look great in this game, that's when you start to worry about, okay, what does the two games in Kansas City look like? Because those are against two teams that are going to be against two, and maybe even a third, because I think that New Mexico is still probably better than Cal.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Those are three teams that are better than what Cal is, and then you worry again about what does the game at Indiana and at Creighton look like. So it kind of is an early test where it feels a little bit like when K-State went to Cal and Jerome Tank's first year or two of like, okay, this is your first road game against a team that has a pulse. Like, what does that look like? Because I think that was also around the same timeline. So hopefully it looks more like that.
That was game 2 of week 1 for Jerome Tang.
So that hopefully it looks a little bit more like that. And that game felt more comfortable than what I think ended up only being like a 5-point win, but it never felt that close.
Yeah, and you talk similarities for that game. The only difference there, do you realize that Cal team, this is insane for a power conference team. They were 270th in KenPom entering that game.
No, they were horrible.
Like, we knew that Cal team was terrible, but holy smokes, that's insane.
Like, this Cal team is better, and I think they're going to end up better in the ACC than 16th that they were projected at. But if you look around the ACC, it's not like our growing up ACC. Like, the ACC now is like a 3 or 4 bid NCAA tournament.
It's terrible. Boston College lost to Central Connecticut last night.
Yes. Like, it is not a good league anymore. And because of that, like, if you even finish at like 10th or 9th in the ACC, like, you're still not even like really that close to make the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, but you kind of alluded to it. My comparison to this, I just think that there are some parallels to K-State football starting the season in Ireland, where you have this early season game that it as a one-off loss has zero bearing on what you do the rest of the season. Like, it's not going to hold you back from any of your goals or expectations, but it's going to significantly hamper the fan engagement and excitement that's on it. And you're going to have to work pretty hard to get it back. And in a similar way, just like K-State football, the schedule is not really conducive to being able to get in a rhythm. You know, K-State didn't start the year then coming back. Well, they kind of did. North Dakota, you should have been a little bit better there. But like, then it was Army, which we knew was going to be really, really tricky to kind of recover from and facing them. And then it was a Friday night road game at Arizona. We knew that that's a tricky spot for teams to be in. None of this excuses like how K-State performed. K-State should have been better in those games, but in singular moments, we could look at those and say teams have troubles in these spots, just any type of team. And Friday night road game late, that's almost an auto loss for the road team. I looked at it last year. Only 2 Big 12 teams went on the road on a Friday night and won a game. And one of them was Houston at TCU, and the other one, I think we ended up deciding it was Utah at UCF, which didn't really count because it was Black Friday, which is kind of a different vibe than just, you know, your regular Friday type of game. But like, those were the only 2 teams last year, so we knew it. Now you look at this basketball team where if you get off on the wrong foot here, fans are like, here we go, different day, same crap, I'm out. And you're going to have a schedule then that's coming up that's going to put people in a spot where, you know, they'll beat Tulsa on Monday, but then you go to Kansas City, you could lose to Mississippi State, and then you could lose to New Mexico or Nebraska. And even if you go, you know, 1-1 in Kansas City, but you have that loss to Cal, then you go to Indiana. Well, if you can't beat Cal at home, you're not winning in Bloomington. And then you go about a little less than a month later, that game at Creighton. So you're already stacking up to where that's 4 non-conference losses for this team that they could be looking at if they don't win this game. And then you have to wonder, okay, where's the mindset and the mentality of this team? Because that is the thing that wrecked K-State football so much after that Iowa State game, is that they played 3 games with the worst mindset that we've seen a K-State football team have, I think, probably since like the Prince era. based off how things went there. Like, given what they had available to use in those games and what they didn't do in them. So basketball has to get it right now.
Yeah, and I don't think that the basketball schedule is even as forgiving as the football one was. Looking at it just as singular one-off games, like if you don't win this one, it does get a little bit hairy. I'm to the point where like the hope, you hope that you beat Cal, you beat Tulsa, you go 1-1 in Kansas City, and that's fine. But you have to win one of the games in Kansas City because it's going to be very tough to win in Bloomington and to win at Creighton. I know that Creighton got ran out of the gym against Gonzaga last night, but that's still a tough place to play when K-State goes to Omaha. So it feels kind of like that swing game of the non-con where like if you win it, sick, like just keep moving on and keep stacking wins. Hopefully you play a little bit better in the first 10 minutes of these bye games and can win a game by 40 or 50. But if you lose it, it becomes, holy crap, are we really doing this again? And especially, and this is where the parallel I think to the LSU game comes from, is like, especially if it's Day-Day Ames that is the killer.
Yeah, and that's the other element to this, is that K-State is looking at a guy on the other side here that, Taj Manning is the only player that played with Day-Day Ames.
Yes.
But the coaching staff knows Day-Day Ames. And I mean, very similar deal last year with LSU. There weren't many people that had played with Cam Carter based off of how rosters overturned. And Cam Carter came in with LSU, who was not a good team. And as we just said, very similar to the Cal team that's coming in. This K-State team with similar expectations to what there was last year. And honestly, based off the personnel and the way they've started, like, expectations are higher for this K-State team than they were that team last year. And Carter came in with 20 and helped LSU win the game.
Yeah, and then diving in more to Cal, it's a very interesting matchup, and one where I think that if K-State plays their best, and especially offensively, I think this game could get out of hand. Cal is one of the worst teams at shooting the three so far this season. I think they're in the 280s in college basketball. K-State's number one. It's like if K-State has a good game shooting again, like they have against Missouri, like they did against Newman, like they did against UNCG and Bellarmine, like that's where I think the game can get out of hand, is if they're making shots. But if not, it gets a little bit hairy. But you also look at it as like, what if I told you by looking at the numbers and by everybody's height on Cal that K-State is actually a better rebounding team than Cal?
Well, it's not overwhelmingly surprising to me, just given the fact that I know, similar to K-State, the leading rebounder for Cal is a 6'3" guard. So this is the other element of this matchup that's fascinating, is that, like, the Nate Johnson, Justin Pippen thing is going to be one of the deciding factors in it. Like, Day-Day Ames is part of it, and I think that's probably center stage number one of the storylines. But you get a guy like Justin Pippen then, that 6'3", just like Nate Johnson, averaging 14 points a game, 7 boards, 5.7 assists. Like, he does it all for them.
And that
Nate
is
Johnson's
Scotty's
basically
boy.
the exact same guy, just a little better.
And that is Scotty's boy.
Yes, quite literally Scotty's boy. So, like, you have a couple of avenues here that are fascinating to watch.
And I think that the biggest kind of factor of who wins this game or not, outside of shooting, is turnovers and points off turnovers, and if it's a live ball turnover versus a dead ball turnover. Because K-State so far, a little bit loose with the ball still. I can live with it at points where if it's like a dead ball turnover and like you just called for a travel, like there's been a couple times where I thought that there's been a little bit of a quick whistle on some travels so far this season, but you can live with those, but like you can't let a team just get a steal and go down and get a layup or a dunk, or in this day and age in basketball, shoot a three in transition. So you can't have many live ball turnovers. Cal is an interesting team because they don't really turn teams over. They're about like middle of the pack in turnover rate defensively, but then also don't really turn the ball over themselves. And K-State is kind of on the two extremes, where they're one of the worst teams in the country in taking care of the ball, but they've become one of the best teams so far in forcing turnovers. So it's going to be kind of that feast or famine. And one of the ways that you can really dictate pace is if you're not turning the ball over and you're turning the other team over a bunch. And we know that K-State wants to get out and run. And if they make this a track meet, I think that this game gets out of hand.
And I will say, if you're looking at it, one of the areas where why it was a little bit of a struggle for K-State at times defensively against Bellarmine is they only forced 13 turnovers in that game. K-State turned it over 18 times themselves. And so we saw Bellarmine get a lot of late shot clock possessions, but it didn't feel as rewarding on the defensive end because they were still getting those shot opportunities. So that's one of those where, again, it's not about K-State taking care of the ball necessarily. It's about just matching the opponent turnover-wise. But Cal, to this point in the season, has been a team where you're probably going to have to keep it under control against them. But maybe Cal's going to make it a little bit easier for K-State to do that since they don't force a ton on their own. Ken Palm says 82-75, Drew. What says you?
I think that I picked an 83 to 71 win. I think that if you want this to get to double digits, if possible, but depending on how the game plays out, I can just live with winning and surviving and advancing. This can't be a game also where, we see a bunch of players coming in the first 4 minutes. Like this needs to be a game where we see what 8 players can play in conference play.
Yeah, tighten it up.
And when they go to Indiana and when they play in Kansas City, because even if you mess around a little bit against Tulsa, that's a team that can bite you, where like UNC Greensboro and Bellarmine just couldn't. Like those are the 2 teams that can. Also, just wanted to point this out because we talked about Justin Pippen a little bit. Fascinating splits on his stats. Not great from the floor, but is excellent at getting to the free throw line. And with how bad K-State has been in defensive free throw rate, that does give me a little bit of a pause.
Yeah, look, just if you're K-State, don't mess around with Doreen Buka to start the game. Don't mess around with whoever. Like, keep it tight. Keep the right guys in there. Cal is not the biggest of teams. When you look at it, they got 2 guys that stand at 6'10", but they don't really ever play on the floor together. So if that matches up kind of nicely with K-State, and I think we saw that little stretch in the UNCG game where we got the 4 guys that we thought are going to be the catalyst to the offense this year, the 3 guards that start, and then Kostic when he's right. Like, this is a game where you're hoping Andre Kostic can just give you enough on defense to keep himself in the game, because you can go out there and you can play with what I think is going to be your highest potential 5 this year, those 4 with either Elias Rapiak or Kamari McGriff. And this might be a game where you're primed to be able to really utilize that because Cal isn't going to overwhelm you with size. And then, like you said, Drew, like, they're not some insane 3-point shooting team right now. They're under 29%, and they're really not, they're not taking a ton of them either. Like, I watched Army against Duke in the first half last night, and it showed that, like, Army is taking some of the most threes in the country, but they're also one of the worst at it. Well, you don't have to worry about that with Cal. They're not going to take them. They're not very good at them. So this is a good opportunity for K-State to put their best on the floor and not have to play to a certain style because of some kind of size disadvantage.
Yeah, all right. I got my score. Ken Pop has his score. What's yours?
I'll go a little bit higher. I'll go 86-75 is what I'll say. But I think K-State should get it done at home. It's going to be weird when we see that first game of the year where K-State doesn't shoot over 50% from 3. Like, that's what the norm has been through 2 games right now.
Well, or the first time in 4 games that we don't see them get to 90 will be a little bit weird. Like, it's made picking a final score really hard. How the first 4 games have gone.
Yeah, because it feels insane to keep going that high, especially against teams that like are from the ACC. But it definitely could happen. Like, this team, they're going to score 90 or 100 against a lot of teams that we think are good this year, or like, that's high scoring for that. They're just, this team's can do some special things on offense. So we'll see how it develops tomorrow night at 8 o'clock from Bramlage Coliseum, K-State with their first kind of test of the season as they host Cal. More than anything, this is like, I don't know, this is like an open notes test for K-State right here, where it's not like, you're facing the real deal. It's just like, if you do your thing and you actually put some time and effort into it, there's going to be no problems here. Now, I was never an open notes guy. I was like, that's going to take too much time. I never studied before tests until I really needed to make sure I got a good enough grade on my Earth Through Time final one year. And then I just realized, holy crap, if I had just gone back and looked at all the answers to the quizzes, that's literally the order that the tests are in. So that last test of the year, easily my best grade of the year, got what I needed, skated out of there with my passing grade and moved on with my life. So that's what K-State has tomorrow. So a little Earth Through Time against the Cal Golden Bears. We'll be live after the game late night to discuss it. And then we will have a game preview for Oklahoma State and K-State tomorrow, myself and Derek Young. Friday, we'll have something, maybe a little bit more on basketball and football as they head to the weekend. And then Saturday, live after K-State, Oklahoma State, 11 a.m. game. You will have to start worrying about the Disney YouTube dispute if you get to Saturday like that, since the game is on ESPNU. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing.
They really do know what they're doing. No ESPN Plus games for the Big 12 all weekend because they know that they're going to get something out of somebody.
And let me just get a little conspiracy laden on you here. Go deeper into it because, yes, the Big 12, ESPNU for this weekend. Next weekend, though, I don't know if you know this, Drew, the one game they already dictated was an ESPN Pluser, 3 o'clock, Oklahoma State UCF. So we'll have to keep our eye out on Sunday for the 6-day selection. If there are any more ESPNUs to get thrown out there, just plan on this thing going further. But maybe if things are going back to ESPN Plus, maybe a deal will be in place by the next weekend. I don't know.
That's a great tinfoil hat conspiracy. I think that you might be onto something there.
Yeah. We'll see what ends up happening. But we've got full coverage, and also you should know K-State's been bumped up another point there, so they're now a 20.5-point favorite when I look today against Oklahoma State. I already know that our own Derek Young is not buying the 20.5-point hype that is there, so we'll have to get his thoughts on it tomorrow and see why he's such a hater. Can't blame him for how this season's gone. For Drew Galloway, I'm Mason Voth. Thanks for watching and listening to the KSO Show. More K-State coverage online at On3 and KStateOnline.com.